So I really enjoyed this weekend because it kind of felt like a day off. I didn't have to prepare a talk yesterday because we have a guest speaker, and she is so wonderful, so committed to the work that she is doing. Reverend Connie Phelps is homegrown. She is from Calgary. She was trained here, and from here she went to Winnipeg, no, to Toronto. From here, I'm going to let her tell you. Edmonton, then Winnipeg, then Toronto, then Kamloops, and then, I think I'll go start a center in Kenya. Seriously. Not seriously? I'm going to let you tell the story. I forgot to do this during the announcements. She is going to be doing a presentation more about her work after service at 1 o'clock today. So what we're going to encourage you all to do is go and get something really, really quick, like there's a Timmy's or there's a Taco Time or something. Yes? How cool is that? I didn't even know that. You don't have to go out. You can eat some of the yummies that we had from Friday night, continue the celebration, then be back here at 1 o'clock. Thanks, Sharon. I didn't know that. Be back here at 1 o'clock to hear more about Reverend Connie. But without any further ado, I don't want to cut into her time. Please welcome Reverend Connie Phelps.
Thank you, darling. Wow. As Dr. Pat said, I love coming here because this is home. This is where I grew up, in this community. Many of you probably don't know me, but my goodness, 20 years this year. 20 years, where did that time go? Oh my goodness. Okay, you told me how to turn this on. I know you did. There we go. Oh my goodness. Yep, I'm all good. So, as Pat said, I've had quite a journey. You know, when people start talking about it, I get tired. It's like, oh man. But one thing I know about that is the journey of consciousness is a journey that opens us up, that expands us into a bigger idea of who and what we are. So what is true for us, what is there for us to do is to follow it. So I was laughing at Pat when she said, like, seriously, she chose it. I'm going, no, seriously, she did not choose. Who would choose that? Seriously. It was not me. But what I know is my whole journey about that was about listening to that call within. Listening to that call, because actually it was not a call, it was a voice in my head that said to go. And so the last 8 years or so have been me learning how to listen to that call. Anybody here ever have that voice in your head that says you should do something? Listen to it. Follow it. Because it will lead you to places that you would never have been able to figure out how absolutely magnificent and glorious that journey is. Really, that's all there is for us to do, is just follow it. And so every year, it's an amazing thing to me, because every year when I come back and I do these talks and I think, wow, what am I going to talk about this time? But I got to tell you, there's so many good stories. So like Pat said, I invite you to stay later because I have so many good stories I have to share you. I get inspired by the stories, by the work, by what's happening. So I want to tell you a story this morning about something that happened that it really helped me to start to understand and make sense of some of the race-conscious collective beliefs that I was immersed in, but didn't realize it. Have you ever had that experience? It's like, oh, now that makes sense. Really, I didn't know that was going on. And so this is one of those experiences, and it allowed me to open up to even more compassion and more awe for the students that are studying this magnificent teaching, in spite of, or maybe because of, the incredibly difficult situations that they are immersed in, it absolutely blows my mind on a regular basis when I think like, really? And you're dealing with that, and you're here, and you're showing up, and you're in classes, and it is the most awe-inspiring thing. And what's happening more and more as it's growing, this past year, I had 38 adult students in 5 different levels of Science of Mind classes. I have the very first African practitioner class going on right now with 5 students. Yeah. So they are loving this teaching because it is giving them that idea of a bigger possibility, that absolutely new idea that there is something going on, something absolutely magnificent is going on. They just feel they were the last ones in the world to ever hear about it. So we don't know how blessed we are. Seriously, we do not realize how blessed we are in this country. I'm sure I didn't realize how blessed I was to be living in this country till I wasn't anymore. And when they start to transform their lives, it is so awe-inspiring. So the story I want to tell you about today is, I had an experience recently that was quite magnificent, always in retrospect, of course. You know, we have these experiences, they don't quite feel quite so awe-inspiring when you're in the middle of them. But afterwards, then we really get it. So anyway, it was a really, really, really huge decision for me to purchase a car in Nairobi. Like, has anybody here ever been to Kenya? So if you have sort of an idea of what that might have been like. It took me a long time to gather up the courage to actually do that, but I was really tired of going on public transport, so I bought a car. So just say that driving in Nairobi is a bit of a challenge. There's a few roadblocks around the idea of driving there. They have a fairly, well, it's not so new anymore, government, almost 4 years old now, and they've been doing incredible development work in the country and new infrastructure and new road systems, and so, you know, that's really making things a lot better. It's easier to get around, and they're even making inroads in ensuring that the drivers actually pay attention to the rules of the road. I mean, that really makes life so much easier when we all pay attention to the rules, because they're there for a reason, right? So, you know, that's saying, even though things are better, nothing happens in a hurry in Kenya. Okay, so, you know, that's just another one of those Kenyan cultural beliefs that I am immersed in all of the time, is something they call Kenyan time. Okay, so they just think that I'm crazy. You know, they really do, because I actually expect things to happen on time. I actually expect to, you know, get where I want to get on time. I mean, what a foreign concept that is. I mean, why would you expect that? So anyway, all of those things give you an idea. Oh, and I forgot to mention the road conditions themselves. So they have a really, really effective way of keeping cars slowed down. And you're driving along at 100 kilometers an hour on the highway, and there's a speed bump. Yep, right there. Oh, that's always fun. Especially when they're not marked. That's really fun. Yeah, yeah. So, and then they have potholes. Like you know what spring in Calgary's like, right? And, I lived here a long time. I get the potholes. Well, these are not potholes. They're car holes, okay? And so I bought a car. And it's really funny. I really should have gotten together a picture because this is really quite funny. So I bought a car. And I bought a little pink car. It kind of looks like a Volkswagen, a little bubble. I call her Bubbles because she's so cute. She's pink. She reminds me of, when we were kids, we had double bubble and you blew bubble gum. Well, that's my car. So, and I can almost guarantee you that Kenyans have never seen a white woman driving a little pink car before. Okay, so I'm unique in many ways, but I'm definitely unique. So anyway, so I've got this little car, only I realized something really quickly after I bought the car, was that so all of the cars there pretty much all come in from Japan, and they called it a new car, but it was 7 years old. That only meant it hadn't been driven in Kenya. Yeah, that's a clue. And because they come from Japan, they're really, really low to the ground. Well, remember talking about the speed bumps and the car holes. Okay, so I think the first thing I needed to do was have the car raised up because, seriously, I was going to take the bottom out really quickly at the way I was going. So one of my cultural beliefs I realized had bought into. It's one thing that the cultural beliefs are going on. It's when we begin to believe them that we're in trouble, right? I mean, they're always happening. We're immersed in them. But if we just choose not to believe them, then they don't apply to us. Well, I believed this one. So one of the ones I believed is I had been told horror stories about taking your car to a mechanic shop. Because they said and when you take your car in, you've got to stand there the whole time they're working on your car because they'll take off your good parts and put in bad. It's a make-work project. and so you've got to watch what they're doing. Okay, well, that all makes really good sense. But you see, I grew up with this idea that God made mechanics for a reason. Because I didn't want to learn it. If it has 4 wheels and I can drive it, I'm good to go. The mechanic does the rest. So it wouldn't have mattered how long I stood beside that car. They could have done whatever they want. I wouldn't know the difference. So then I'm having this, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to take my car? Where am I? It was a huge issue in my mind. I had made it into this huge thing. Like, it was, anybody ever do that? You take a little idea and you blow it up? Man, no, Pat never has done that. I know you, Pat. Yeah. Yeah, right. So I had one today. No, so I blew this issue up in my mind until it was bigger than I thought I could handle. So anyway, I'm panicking about this idea. And so one of the first things I did after I bought the car, I decided to go on a road trip. Oh yeah, this is all fun. So people there, my students and people I know, absolutely, I think I've lost the entire plot when I tell them that I'm driving what they call upcountry, because everybody comes from somewhere, upcountry, that I'm driving by myself. A woman by herself in Nairobi, it's unheard of. You can't do that. But what I absolutely know is I'm always guided, guarded, and protected wherever I am. God is. There's nothing to be worried. I live in a friendly universe. Of course I'll be supported in all of my good. So that is a really foreign idea for them. They just think I've lost the plot. I'm, little weird. So anyway, so I'm driving up country in my little pink car and I'm going on over, oh my goodness, I thought this is really serious. I've got to get this fixed before I head back home or I won't have a car left. So one of the friends I was going to go visit up there, his brother owns a car. So I thought, well, he must know a mechanic. So we get there, and he's, oh, sure, you can, call my mechanic. And so it was on a Saturday, and I was doing a class that afternoon at 1 o'clock. It was all advertised, and I do like being punctual. And so the mechanic says, sure, have the car there. We open at 8 in the morning. So be there at 8, and the car will be done in a half an hour. Okay, Kenyan time, I'm reading that to think, okay, so, we should be out of there by 10. 4 times the amount of time they say. I should be good, right? And so where I took the car to was a half an hour this way, and rough ideas, okay? You never want to count on that. And where I was having the class was like another half an hour in the opposite direction. So I've got a ways to go from after I even pick up the car. So I took my friend with me. We're at the mechanic shop on time, and we drive up, and my car was instantly surrounded by these young men. I'm sure they'd never seen a white woman in their mechanic shop before. And I get out of the car, and they lift the car up, and they they sit it on blocks, reed rocks, okay? So there's my car, and within seconds, they have all of the tires off, like poof. So there's my car sitting there with no tires on these rocks. And I'm thinking, oh, this is not good. This is not good. So Michael's dealing with them. He's my friend up there, and he's talking, what we need to be done. Oh, yeah, it's all good, it's all good. And somebody goes whizzing off there on a little motorbike, and we're sitting there waiting, and we're waiting, and Michael finally, I was drawing a crowd. Michael says, Connie, I think you need to go to the coffee shop. I'll call you when your car's done. So I go to a coffee shop, so some work could actually be done around there. So I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And 10 o'clock comes and goes, and I'm waiting. By about 11, I'm starting to get a tad panicky. It's like, and Michael, every time I call him, he keeps saying, oh yeah, they say this, and oh yeah, they say that, and oh yeah, it's now this, and it's always something. Finally, about 11:30, I walked over to the shop because I'm losing it already. Okay, I said, that's it. I'm done. Put the tires back on my car. I'm out of here. They held me hostage. They would not. Here's what I learned out of all of that and that's why the title of my talk is The Truth Shall Set You Free. Because what I realized, here's the cultural thing. They will tell you exactly what you need to hear to get their needs met. Yep, they don't call it lying, but nothing is ever the truth. Whatever they tell you is. So I thought about this, and I thought, isn't that fascinating? Man, it started to make a lot of sense. Things that go on. And I thought, yeah, but really, is that unique? Is that really unique? Where is it that maybe I maybe don't tell quite the truth? Because the truth is, telling the truth takes a lot of energy and time. It's just easier not to tell the truth sometimes. And you're probably sitting there going, like, what are you talking about? I'll give you an example. How many of you, somebody like, I don't know, I have mother issues. So your mother phones and you go, oh, Mom, I'm really busy, I have to go. Right? Anybody? Seriously, guys, I'm not the only one that does that, am I? Is it the truth? No. But why did I not tell the truth? because it's easier. It's easier. It's more convenient not to tell the truth. We have needs that we need to get met. So those guys at the shop, they have immediate needs. They needed money that day to feed their children. Here's a white woman in a little pink car. Oh, goody, we're going to get some money. Do you think they're going to put the tires back in my car? Not a chance. No, not until they got their needs met. So I started thinking about that phenomena even more. And I talked to some of my students about this. I said, wow, this is something I'm noticing. Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit of a slow learner. It took me about 4 years to start getting it, okay? It was not my reality. So when I mention this to the students, they all go, oh, of course. That goes on all the time. And then you start thinking about the consequences of not telling the truth. So one of the consequences that I realize about this idea of not telling the truth is if we don't tell ourselves the truth, how do we ever trust our word? How do we trust our word? How many people here have, New Year's Eve, classic example, New Year's resolution. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever we're going to do. Trust me, if you're doing it on New Year's Eve, it's an excuse. You really don't want to do it. But how do we trust our word if we're not telling ourselves the truth? So we begin by not even trusting ourselves. But something else happens. I realized, and I've talked to my students about this, I said, so it started to make sense. They don't trust what I say either. They don't trust, why would they? They don't trust themselves. They don't trust each other. If somebody says, oh, I'm going to be there, they may or may not show up, ever. So they know when they make an agreement with somebody that it's not, they don't even expect it to be the truth, ever. So not only do they not trust themselves, but they don't trust each other. They don't trust each other to ever tell the truth. How on earth do you have a society that is based on not trusting each other? But here's the big one I realized. They are fundamental Christians, 80% of them. And if you heard me talk last year, you heard me say this then as well, is I truly believe when the missionaries started going to Africa, they got the crazies. Like the serious crazies over there. Like, whole other talk can come out of that. So they are immersed in a fundamental idea of Christianity that, to me, it's quite frightening when I just... So just an example of that. And I know many of you have come from a Christian background. So when you say God is good, what's the response? All the time, right? We say that all the time. God is good all the time. Well, just use that one example. If that were the truth, if you believed that, if God is good all the time, I tell my students, you don't get to have that both ways. Either God is good all the time or it's not. Well, that's why they created the devil. They created the devil because they didn't want to blame God anymore. They had to have something to blame, because what do you do with stuff that isn't good? So they don't even trust God. They say God is good all the time, but the minute something bad goes wrong, oh, it's God's will. Seriously, I just like, oh man. Think about this in your own life, though. Think about the consequences of that. Do you truly believe that the God that you believe in, your version of God, Thank heavens I don't have their version of God, because my version of God is not the same. In my version of God, God is good all the time. God is all there is. So it all has to be good. We don't need to have a scapegoat. We don't need to have somebody that we blame because something bad went wrong in our lives. Because we know the truth. And the truth is, it is all good all the time. Everything. How can we wrap our minds around that? Do you ever question that yourselves? Those of you that have been in classes, I'm sure you've had that. You know, people will come up against that in classes and go, oh yeah, but not this. Right? Oh yeah, but not this. How could God be there? How could God be there in the middle of child abuse, incest? How could God be there in the face of terrible tragedy? How could God be there? How could God be there? It's a question we ask ourselves. But what I absolutely know is true. That too is true. I mean, I don't want to get political here, but you know, I have that all the time. People say, well, how can that be good? And yet I know that it is. So what is it is going on in your life that you think is not good? What is it that is you're going on that you're saying, yeah, but that's not it? Because what I know absolutely, that it is all God. And it doesn't matter what is going on, look for that. Because that truly is the truth that will set you free on your journey of discovery and of knowing and of revealing and to being that. I know that that is true, and so it is.